Jimmy on the beat, boy. Jimmy on the beat, boy. Jimmy on the beat, boy.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the GSN Sports Network podcast. I'm your host, John J. II, here with Sam Vitale. Sam, how are we doing today, man?
Yeah, I'm doing good, John. Good to be here. How are you, man?
Doing great, man. It's a blast. We're back here with the GSN. We told you guys we'd be back on this GSN grind, and the GSN, just to explain it to the people that might not have shown up here before, this displays all of sports. We don't have a golf podcast. This is the golf podcast. We're making it that, and we're excited. A lot of majors coming up. We got a lot of big tournaments coming up. We had the Genesis happen last weekend. A lot of electricity. We saw Tiger Woods make a comeback, and there's a lot happening in the world of sports regardless, aside from golf. So we're looking to dive into every one of those topics for you guys here on the GSN. We're thankful for having you guys here with us today, and we're excited to get into it. So let's talk about the Genesis first. Let's just jump right into it. Jon Rahm takes over and he wins 16 under, beats Max Homa by a stroke at 15 under. Max Homa finished up, and he was kind of atop of the leaderboard for a while. So he was looking like he was going to win, and he had his family there. He came out and said in an interview following that, he's like, I wanted to win it for them. I had everybody in town. They're watching me. They're supporting me. Obviously the 2021 champion there at Riviera, and he wanted to pull it off. He wanted to pull off the repeat win for his people, for his family. I guess, what are your takeaways from the Genesis, Sam? Let me ask you that real quick. And what did you have to appreciate in this tournament?
There's a lot to take away here, starting with Max Homa. Put on a hell of a show. Watching him get emotional afterwards got me a little emotional. I'd be lying if I said after watching his post-round interview on Sunday I didn't go on eBay and look up Max Homa autographs. The guy easily wins over the hearts of the fans. That's what we want to see. We want to see somebody that's gritty, that plays with all that heart. and that leaves it all out on the course like that. It's no secret that golf isn't the most exciting game in the world if you're somebody who's a big football fan or maybe a fighting fan, and so that's what we like to see out of our PGA Tour players is that emotion and build that storyline, give us something to look forward to, and Max Homa makes it really easy, for us to make him a fan favorite. The other thing about that is, talking about him having his family out there and being a defending champ. He grew up there in the Pacific Palisades. That's his home course. I mean, he defended that course, with all of his heart there, and you could see how heartbroken he was to give it up to Jon Rahm this year, and he handles it like an absolute champ. All you can say in a situation like that is, the other guy was just better today. And Max Homa is great about that. He admitted that he beat himself off of the tee. But there's really no shame at the end of the day in losing to a guy like Jon Rahm. I mean, if you can say that you finished second to a guy like Jon Rahm, finished ahead of a guy like Rory, you beat out Tiger Woods in the field. I mean, that's a great weekend. All right. And the money that you get paid for that, I mean, that's pretty good too. Overall, it's a win for Max Homa. I'll be pulling for him, in the Genesis next year. Hats off to Jon Rahm. He played his heart out. I said last week on the podcast I'd be a bit of a mess if Tiger didn't make the cut. He had me worried on Friday. I thought for sure when he lipped out that par on 17, I believe, maybe it was 18, but when he lipped that out, my heart dropped. I said Tiger just went one stroke over the cut line. This is kind of a failure. All we wanted to see was Tiger make the weekend, and I woke up Saturday, turned it on, and there he was, and my weekend was made right on the spot when Tiger was out there. So overall, the Genesis, big hit. I always loved that tournament. The course is beautiful to watch. The field is always full of superstars. Great tournament.
Yeah, it was a great tournament, great weekend. We saw Tiger make the cut. That was the icing on the cake, and everybody had their eyes on Tiger. You got the bottom line there on ESPN. It tells everybody's scores, and then it says, "Oh, Tiger Woods did this." Okay, and everyone was kissing his ass. And that's great. That's great. Tiger Woods needs that type of recognition. He's earned that right to have that recognition. So it's not. It's not undeserving for Tiger Woods to have that. He has the foundation. He's the representative of the tournament, or at least he was this year at the Genesis. So he deserves the recognition. He has the shit talking. He has the handing the tampon off to JT. I love that, and I wish he just stood his ground. He's Tiger Woods, for crying out loud. He should never have apologized for that. What are your feelings about that?
No, I mean, Tiger Woods, he doesn't need to apologize to anybody. Conor McGregor has the best quote about that. The double champ apologizes to nobody. Tiger Woods is much more than a double champ. I don't think he needs to say sorry for anything that he does, especially on the course. I mean, he's out there playing his game. We talked about this last week. We said he probably vouched for himself to go play with JT and Rory. That's why he wanted to do it, to go be with his buddies, take a little edge off, play those little pranks on each other. I mean, that's what he's out here for. If Tiger Woods wants to come out and have fun, play some pranks, that's what he's going to get. He deserves it. He's earned it. And if anybody has an issue with that, I think that's a little bit soft. I would hope Tiger Woods doesn't let up off the gas pedal with that. Like I said, I mean, anything to make the game more entertaining, I think, is a positive.
Yeah, definitely. And I think they're just out there having fun. Tiger Woods obviously going to have fun with JT and Rory. Those are somewhat of his prodigies, and that's what he looks at them as, and they look at him like Tiger Woods, and they kind of have that thing now where they're old enough, approaching 30, if not 30 already. Rory's in his 30s, but JT's, I don't know if he's there yet, but anyway, they're all kind of like at the same level. They've been in the tour for a while. And they know what's going on. They know how to anticipate certain things, and I think they've all had some issues with the camera maybe being too on them, or the mic picking up some things. I know JT especially has been under fire for things in the past relating to that. But it's part of the game, and you got to roll with it. You got to let some things go. Obviously, it's Tiger Woods. They're going to blow it out of proportion, but I think it's no harm, no foul, and no need for apologies. That's just where I stand on it. So it is what it is. I think we have to mention this as well. Second shot on the 17th hole for Jon Rahm, hit the grandstand and gave him a very easy eagle putt. Eagle opportunity. He wound up making the putt, and he tied Max Homa going into 18. And that was impressive in and of itself. And then to see him go on and win it by a stroke, I mean, that hitting that grandstand, that's the tournament right there. So that's exactly what we are looking for as far as fireworks, and it's impressive stuff. So I'm excited to see it. And Jon Rahm's been on fire this year. So others in the group, you got Patrick Cantlay. He made a run, not enough holes left, finished 14 under. And then Will Zalatoris came out of the woodwork, shooting 7 under, a 64 in round 4, gave him the 4th place spot. And then Tiger Woods shot +2 on Sunday, 73 in round 4, barely made the cut, finished 1 under overall. And something else that's just crazy, I don't know if you saw Xander Schauffele, he actually on 17 too, he dunked it. And that allowed him to make the cut because I think he parred the next hole. He parred 18, and that allowed him to make the cut right there at 1 over. So Riviera was playing hard, playing tough. The greens, they sounded like they were made of cement. Yeah. So, I mean, what did you think of those greens? Like, they'd hit the ground, and I'd hear it on a mic, and it'd be like, geez, that's like hitting a solid material. There's no give to those greens.
No give at all, especially given all the rain that they got earlier in the week. We would have maybe expected some softer greens, but, Riviera, it's a tough place to play, and I guess if the greens are going to be hard, they're going to be hard. I don't think any rain's going to stop that, but like you mentioned, Patrick Cantlay, you said not enough holes left. He's going to be a guy that's always going to be right there. For, I think, maybe the next 10, 15 years on this tour, he's a consistent player. You're going to see him win a couple tournaments. Probably each year, you're going to see him get his top 5s and his top 10s in abundance going forward. Zalatoris is another very exciting player. Sneaky player, though. Only 1 win since the beginning of the 2022 season. That 64 that he dropped on Sunday, that was heroic. That's something you should expect to see more from Zalatoris. He's currently leading the PGA Tour in 4th round scoring with an average of 65. Guy's an absolute stud, and I guess it just needs to wait till Sunday for him to really, get the pressure on him to score. So I expect to see a lot from him going forward.
Yeah, very high expectations for Will Zalatoris going into 2023. Had a lot of chances in 2022. We've seen it happen multiple times where he's right there, but it's just not enough. And so he got to win, but he still needs to find his groove. He's getting there. So we're looking for Will Zalatoris. We call him, Happy Gilmore's caddy. That's what he looks like, right? So we bust his balls, and we have a lot of fun doing it. But yeah, Will Zalatoris, he's going to be an up-and-comer. We see the potential week after week. We see him come back with a 7 under 64 to finish at 4th. So, I mean, he's right there in the mix, right there. You give him one more round, and he's likely, right there with the best of them. So a lot of big expectations Will Zalatoris has presented to us. So we're looking forward to seeing that in 2023 a little bit more. Let's move on to the Honda Classic, just kicked off today. Joseph Bramlett and Billy Horschel are atop the leaderboard at 5 under. And this is playing at PGA National Members Club in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. A great track down there, and a great precursor for the players coming up here in a few weeks. So what do we have to look forward to for the players? Obviously, it's ramping up. I call it the 5th major of 2023. It's a 5th major candidate, obviously other than the big 4 majors. So what are we looking for? Players Stadium course, obviously 17th hole, a lot of emotions, a lot of big wins happen here, a lot of heartbreak too. We've seen it all here at down here in Ponte Verde Beach, Florida. What do we have to expect here coming up in early March?
TPC Sawgrass here at the Players. It's kind of the quiet, maybe more dressed up version of TPC Scottsdale that we saw at the Waste Management Open. Like you alluded to, the stadium course, there's going to be a lot of folks out there. It's going to be a star-studded field, but it's just going to be a little more professional than the Waste Management. This tournament's always a real barn burner. Unfortunately, the would-be defending champ is Cam Smith. He's not going to be playing this year, which that's a bummer, but there's still going to be a ton of studs out there. I can't wait for this tournament. The 17th Island Green, probably one of the most famous holes in golf of all time, if not the most famous hole. I'll be having that hole specifically on one of my TVs starting on Thursday morning. As soon as they tee off, I will watch every single tee shot on the 17th. I can't wait for it.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast, man. And we talked about this last week on the GSN, talking about the 17th hole at Eagle Eye over in Bath, Michigan. And I had the pleasure of being able to work there. So I would play that course decent amount, not as much as the other ones, because they had the stacked tee sheets and everyone wants to play Eagle Eye, and it's an amateur location for U.S. Open qualifiers and other tournaments, Michigan AM tours, and events of that nature. There's a lot of events like that they play qualifiers there, and it's totally the caliber to play that. You got your link style, you got the 17th hole, similar to TPC Sawgrass, and it's similar. It's identical down to the quarter inch, right? So
an exact replica.
Exact replica down. I mean, they were getting there. They were doing some. They were surveying that day when they had that. They're getting everything figured out. They're finding the contours of the ground. It's kind of it's a nice landscape. You go there and you don't feel like you're in Michigan. It's kind of weird, but yeah. I mean, this tournament specifically, the Players Tournament, it has so much emotion attached to it. You have that putt from Tiger back in the day. Oh, it's better than most, better than most. The announcers are getting hype. He drains the putt, huge fist pump. And then you got the same thing where Ricky Fowler wound up winning the event and in style, sticking it to the right of the green, the short side, and making the putt for birdie. You got I can go on and on. There's stories. There's entire reels of clips where it's showing highlights of the 17th hole at TPC Sawgrass. So I don't have to do it. You guys have YouTube. We have the internet. Go ahead and look it up. And I'm sure we'll be showcasing some of that stuff on GSN as well going into the week of the tournament. So a lot of emotions, a lot of things to look forward to. Any early winners, anyone that you're projecting, anyone that's been playing well or someone that maybe might come out of the woodwork to win this tournament, any early projections for winners, Sam?
We'll have to see how the field shapes out. Keith Mitchell's one guy that I've been keeping a close eye on. He's not playing this week. I was pretty disappointed about that. He's historically played very well in Florida, and he's actually been playing very well this year on the tour. I think he's got 3 top 10 finishes so far. Kind of a big deal for somebody that's not really like an A-list golfer. So he's somebody I've got my eye out on. And then, of course, you're always looking at the stars of the game. I'm always rooting for JT. JT tends to play pretty well here. Tommy Fleetwood, I think, could be a real dark horse here. There's a lot of great video of him playing the 17th hole very well. I'm just really excited to see it. All the stars are going to be out. We're going to see a lot of ups and downs from guys. I wouldn't be surprised, kind of a hot take, I wouldn't be surprised if our leaders after the Thursday round probably call it the top 3. I wouldn't be surprised if 2 of the top 3 don't make the cut for the weekend. It's that hard of a course to play. The way that they can move the pin locations, I've read a lot about what they do there on the grounds for superintendents and the grounds crew. They purposely pick out some pin locations for maybe some days are maybe good par pin locations, and then some days they want to make those bogey pins. So that's what they like to do on a Thursday. So I wouldn't be surprised if the same guys dropping birdie putts left and right on Thursday are having a real time finding the hole on Friday.
Yeah, you mentioned the superintendents and the pin placements, and sometimes just watching these events, and this is especially true at Sawgrass, but it's almost like they're picking the hole locations for the hardest day of golf. So they do this here at Flushing. I've actually never played in it, but they just pick absurd pin placements. And it's just like ridiculous stuff. Like it's like a bogey or double bogey pin placements. It's sickening. But it seems like they're almost playing this game, especially on a Thursday. They want to see where people are going to score, and then they'll let them coast into the weekend, maybe throw them a bone, let them make the cut if they play well. And then maybe they'll tighten them up a little bit more on Sunday. Just to really weed out the weak links. You mentioned Keith Mitchell. He's been playing phenomenally, and I can honestly say I haven't seen him even close to the top 10 out of in the past several years, and maybe he has had some top 10 finishes going historically back, but he hasn't really gained relevance until this year, and seeing him, make a splash at the Genesis and, kind of falling off towards the end. But I thought he was going to make a run there even late, so he's got that Bubba look to him. I like it. I like his style of play. Really level-headed guy. He'll hit a bad shot and he'll kind of shake it off, and that's something that some of the announcers were highlighting, just talking about the professionals, talking about even highlighting Tiger Woods. He'd have a bad hole, any of these guys, and they're human beings. It sometimes doesn't seem that way, but they're human beings in real life. So seeing them manage that anger and that frustration and moving on to the next hole, as hard as it is, as difficult as it is, I think us as, I guess we can say we're amateur golfers, that's something for us to take note of and really incorporate or try to incorporate into our game. That's the hardest part of golf, believe it or not. And Sam, hopefully you can attest to this to a certain degree, but building that strong mental game and having that, between the ears. If you're strong between the ears and you can handle almost anything the course throws at you or your own game throws at you, you're going to be a hell of a lot better golfer, and you're not really worried as much. Obviously, it translates to how well you're striking the ball, where the ball's going, birdies, pars, bogeys, management of damage, things like that. It all translates. But if you can move on from a bad hole and pick yourself up and say, hey, let's treat this as a new hole, I mean, you're already way ahead of the field in mental game. That's the hardest thing to achieve, is a strong mental game in the game of golf. What would you say to that?
Yeah, that's exactly it. You hit the nail on the head there. I think it's a Sam Snead quote, if not a Ben Hogan quote, but he says you can't measure yourself based on the result of where the ball goes after you hit it. It's the worst way you can measure yourself. If you're hitting your tee shot and you miss the fairway, you cannot think about what you just did in terms of, am I hitting it well or not? You can't do that. Same thing with your approach to the green. If you miss the green, you can't evaluate yourself specifically on that day as to how you're playing. I know Ben Hogan said that if he hit the ball perfect 3 times in one round, that he was having a great day. So that's something I think that really separates the amateurs from the pros here, is especially when you go out and you play your golf league during the week, you'll see a guy hit one bad shot, throw his club, drop an F-bomb. And that's exactly what we just said you don't see out of good tour players like a Keith Mitchell right now. Level-headed, very cool, always moving forward with that mental game being at the forefront of the focus. It's what can you do on the next shot? When you get to that next shot, you live right there. You don't live in the shot before that. You don't think about the shot after. That's accentuated on this course. It's designed to be extremely tough. If these players don't come out and think in the moment on the shot that they're lined up over, they're going to struggle. So it'll be interesting to see if we get some hot heads out there this week. And I would bet that the cooler heads will be at the top of the leaderboard and make the cut next weekend.
Yeah, definitely. And that doesn't go to say, and a lot of these guys in their amateur years, it's amazing to me seeing some of these clips. Like, you'll see Tiger throwing F-bombs out, and it gets caught up by the mics. Those boom mics that are right there by the swing, meant to catch a swing, that catches audio too.
They catch everything.
They catch everything, yeah. And you even got Sergio Garcia with an entire reel of clips with him going crazy. You got John Daly throwing wedges into lakes. Mm-hmm. So it happens. It just even further proves that these guys are human beings and they deal with the game of golf similar to amateurs in certain instances. But the better that you can calibrate that, and I've wrapped my fair share of drivers and hybrids around trees before, I can honestly say. And I'm not proud of that, and especially right after the fact. Yes, you get that anger out, but it lasts probably a second and a half, maybe almost 2 seconds, and then it's instant regret. So mitigating that, your personal conflicts, whatever you do, obviously you try to fix it and you try to go to the range and do it, but it doesn't matter what you do even on the range. You got to be able to execute in the moment on the course, because that's where it matters, and that's where that mental game really comes into the forefront, because you need to be able to incorporate that mental game into your own swing and be confident in your shot, commit to the shot. You don't want to be able to tail off away from it or shy away from it, go half commit on it, decelerate through the downswing. I can go on and on about it, but you don't want to do those things. You want to be able to make a mental checklist, and we're getting into the weeds here, but that's fine. Make a mental checklist of what you need to do. If you can check off 90% of those things once you're done with your round, you're not worried about what your score is or was. you're worried about checking those boxes on that checklist, that mental checklist. Maybe it's even a physical checklist you got to make. But check those boxes. Keep the head down. Commit to the shot. Don't throw a club. It might be on there for some people. Bounce back after a bad hole. Keep a level head. Whatever it is. Just be able to look at that after a round, after just a novice round, just having fun with the boys, maybe a couple Miller Lights. You never know. And see what boxes you can check off, because that's going to tell you a lot about where you're at in your game, because you know where you got to be before the round. And then you know where you should be following the round, but where you're actually at following the round could be a completely different situation than where you thought you should be prior to the round. So a lot of things to take away from that. And everybody's game's different. Everyone's mental game's different. And you got to be able to manage that and the course. Course management is second to none as far as importance in the game of golf. So, oh man, I feel like I should be on tour with how I'm talking right now.
I think you got the mentality for it.
Well, I'll tell you how I feel after my first round, and then I'll see if we check those boxes on my checklist. I'll be sure to share that checklist with the people as well. So let's move on. Let's talk about Live Golf. So Live Golf has been in the forefront. We're probably going to have a segment on Live Golf every GSN pod that we talk about golf specifically. So in a recent article from Golf Digest, Live Golf players are allowed into all four majors: the PGA Championship, the Masters, the U.S. Open, and the British Open. What are our thoughts on this? Do we think this should be the case, or do we think this is crazy?
Yeah, I called for this last week and said the idea of getting a PGA versus Live a field out there excites me. I want to see the matchups head to head. There's so much shit talking back and forth that, it's always better to just see it played out, especially since Live has taken so many superstars from the PGA. Just a few to mention: Dustin Johnson, DeChambeau, Brooks Koepka, Cam Smith. I think when Cam Smith, he might have been world number one when he left for the Live Tour. So to me, I think it's a big win to get the Live Tour players here in the majors. I want to see them go head to head. But then there's also a discussion about the legality of it. I didn't know this until I really looked into it, but it turns out the major tournaments are not technically PGA Tour tournaments. They govern themselves. They're not governed by the PGA Tour. Therefore, the PGA Tour really can't say who is and who isn't allowed to play. Each of the four majors have their own criteria for who is and who isn't allowed to play. So, like we had talked about earlier before the pod, James Piat from MSU, he had won the U.S. Amateur last year, and that gave him the qualifications to go play in the U.S. Open. No PGA Tour affiliation, no PGA Tour card, and he was able to go play, and now he's actually a Live golfer, so we might see him here in the majors this year.
Yeah, that's an interesting distinction to make too, because what my prior thought process was until I heard that is that these events are sanctioned by the PGA Tour and the PGA Tour only, and they're just happening at, say an Augusta or, at a St. Andrews for the British. That's not the case. That's not the case, okay? That's news to me, but that's interesting, and it sheds a new light on what a major really is and what it displays and what it shows the for the game of golf, both for fans, players alike. And to see that these tournaments are independently owned, basically it's just like saying, hey, we're having a golf tournament. You're going to need to pass these certain qualifications, whether you won or placed in a tournament of the same quality or caliber last year to earn yourself a pass into the Masters. You have to be invited to the Masters. The Masters is a very sacred ground where golf is played. And the fact that they are independently owned, the USGA obviously runs the U.S. Open, and there's different rules for every major. The PGA Championship, that's obviously, I would assume the PGA Championship has to be somewhat related to the PGA Tour itself, but it seems like if Live Golf players are being allowed in, that might just be a pass that the PGA Tour itself is throwing out. I guess, and they all have their own specific, intricacies to it, and they're all kind of, they're not created equally in a cookie cutter fashion. So it's an interesting dynamic. How do I feel about the Live Golf players being allowed to play in these events that are, majorly, and before the Live Golf Tour was around, these were all PGA Tour players in there. So this was never really worthy of discussion before 2021 or 22, whenever Live Golf became a thing. And it's just kind of crazy. I think the best golfers in the world should be able to do it and play in these majors, and it's insane. But I don't know. I guess in a way too, to play devil's advocate, and maybe I even feel this way a little bit, is these live golfers are almost trying to have their cake and eat it too. Having their cake by going to Saudi Arabia, collecting the big checks when they get dubs, and way more money than they would ever make in the PGA Tour. Throwing the legacy basically away. The PGA Tour gave them their break, and they're saying, all right, I'm going to jump ship. Or even James Piot, before he even has a chance to get into the PGA Tour, he's like, I'm going to Live. I'm getting recruited, and now he's playing with Phil Mickelson on his team for Live Golf. So they're having their cake, and then they're eating it too by also coming back to the mainland, or even going to the British and playing in these mostly, these PGA Tour events that I guess aren't PGA Tour events. They're just majors on the PGA Tour that are solely owned independently, and they're able to compete amongst PGA Tour players. So I'm sure there's some bitterness, some bitter feelings happening amongst, the veterans, the Tigers, the Rorys, the JTs, and countless others, the Cantlays, even the Schefflers. There's a lot of people that I'm sure are like, I don't think these guys should be able to play in the PGA Championship, or what I mean? So there's probably mixed emotions. I've heard the animosity before from Tiger and Rory, and even JT specifically. I've heard them quoted on it. So I know how they feel about it, that they're not happy about it. And they have friends, I'm sure, that have maybe turned to callous adversaries once they jump ship to go to Live. So it's going to be an ongoing discussion. They're kicking off their season as well as the PGA Tour starts to ramp up. So there's a lot up for debate. But I guess, what do you think about the mentality? If you were on the PGA Tour, Sam, let me ask you this, give you a hypothetical. If you're on the PGA Tour, maybe playing well, got a couple top 10 finishes out of, let's say the last 10 events you played in, and you're playing in a PGA Championship, maybe you're paired with a Dustin Johnson or a DeChambeau or one of the Koepka brothers. Or how do you feel about that? Maybe you were previously friends with these guys when they were on the PGA Tour. You had pairings together. Maybe you had a weekend trip with the boys, a couple of fireball shots, and you guys really had a heart-to-heart. But now they're on the Live Golf Tour. How do you feel towards them? Do you think that changes the relationship, or do you think it stays the same to a certain degree?
I'd say the relationship changes a little bit. I think when you move from the PGA Tour to the Live, this might sound backwards, but I'll explain. I think you become more of the competition than you become the friend if you stay on the PGA Tour. Where I'm going with that is, if you look into certain rivalries that we've seen on the PGA Tour, such as only a couple years ago, Brooks and Bryson DeChambeau. Those two guys, they're making money together. They're making money together every time they play. Every time that those two get in a battle on the weekend, that's a money-making opportunity. That's their personal brand, especially when they can get into little sound bites that blow up and go viral. All of that kind of goes away when these players move to the Live. Now, I know both Brooks and Bryson moved to the Live, but my point is, when all of you are on the PGA Tour, you're making money together. The more competition you have back and forth amongst each other is just more money in both of your pockets. When you've got so many guys who, at the time that they jumped ship to Live, were in the top 50, talking about Cam Smith, talking about Dustin Johnson, talking about Bryson, when those guys move, they're taking revenue away from the PGA Tour and the players. Believe it or not, that's how it works. It's the same thing in any other major sport. Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen and any other quarterback. I'm thinking of Lamar Jackson right now. Notice after the games, these guys aren't, mean mugging each other. They go up to each other, they're giving each other hugs, swapping jerseys with each other. Do you know why? It's because their rivalry and their greatness pitted against each other. That's what brings in the ratings. That's what the fans want to see. That's what gets them paid. So when you jump ship and go to a completely different production, you're taking money out of your friends' pockets. So I would be a little bit salty myself. If I was a PGA Tour player in these majors, I would say you got to get your head on straight and you got to show these guys who the better golfers are.
Definitely. I think the PGA Tour players, they can stand atop a higher mountain,
Yep.
legacy-wise, respect-wise, no matter how you look at it. The PGA and other players, other fellow players in the PGA Tour that maybe got offers. I mean, we've heard some of these offers that some of these players have gotten that they've turned down, that it really speaks volumes to what they think of when they think of the PGA Tour and what it stands for, the legacy that it's brought on, the players, the greats that have played in the PGA Tour historically. Nameless, countless guys that their names are priceless and they're written into history forever. Right? The PGA Tour has that legacy. They have the experience in the world. It's just the real world experience. It has that legacy, and you're playing for that. When you decide to go to live, you're throwing all that away. And it really tarnishes your legacy, even if you've winning, even Cam Smith winning the British before he transitioned to live, that tarnishes that win to me, a little bit. So it's tough. And you mentioned the ratings, and you mentioned the camaraderie, and kind of throwing that away and putting things higher on the priority list than the legacy, than the camaraderie, than the overall ratings, than the rivalries that are based in just skill in the game and just having fun out there. And then you even got the Bryson and Brooks kind of quarrel going on, and that's exciting for people that are fans of the PGA Tour. And then they both jump ship, which is that's kind of crazy in and of itself to talk about. I mean, you can't help but think that there's animosity between a PGA Tour player and a LIV Golf player, and especially coming together in the same tournament. We've seen that happen in the Masters this past year, where there was some ruffling of feathers. We didn't know if there was going to be haymakers thrown on the grounds of Augusta. We didn't know because we had never really seen that big of an event have two different leagues coexist on the same property in the same event. So it's a very complex thing. It's a sociological experiment is what I like to call it, because we're seeing how different players react to other players, fellow players, friends leaving, and then converging again when they see each other. And it's just I don't know, man. Money talks, bullshit walks. That's the case. I mean, that's the moral of the story here. And I respect the players that maybe could have went and jumped ship easily. Fringe players, maybe that aren't top 10 guys every week, that said, hey, no, I'm going to stay with the PGA Tour. I like my future here. I know I have a future in this tour. I know I can succeed in it. And last thing I'll say about the LIV Golf Tour, do you think this, by these players leaving and going to LIV, do you think that opens up the field to maybe some of these fringe players? Because a lot of talent has left. I mean, this is opening up the opportunities have vastly increased for players that maybe weren't top 10 guys, that maybe are top 15, maybe even creeping into the top 10 now.
I've got mixed opinions on that. I tend to be in the camp that says for all these guys that have left, they will be replaced. So there's a whole wide door open for new talent to come in. And I really don't think the formula is that hard for new golfers that you've never heard of today becoming household names next season or even after their first win this year. If you think about it, and this is probably relatively disparaging, but I mean, like some of these guys, I'll take Cam Smith, for example. I think anybody could become Cam Smith. As far as why do you like Cam Smith? What makes him your favorite golfer? There's nothing too special. Versus on the PGA Tour side, we've got some real great golfers who will they'll never be repeated. Like Tiger Woods, the only person that could really compete for his legacy and his fanfare would probably be Charlie. But I really do think that golfers leaving for LIV opens up the door for more talent in the PGA. I think that all of the other affiliated PGA tours have nothing but talent that can come and replace anybody who's left. You've got the Korn Ferry Tour, and then you've also got the other PGA Tour affiliates like DP World Tour, European Tour, the Asian Tour. There's a lot of talent that we can pick up here, so I'm not too worried about it. I do want to touch on the comment you made about some of the animosity between some LIV players and some PGA Tour players. There's already animosity between folks like Rory McIlroy and Patrick Reed. I don't know if you'll see Patrick Reed in many majors this year, but the tee throwing incident on the range a couple weeks ago, that was pretty exciting. And you've got guys like Billy Horschel, who's just out to get any live player at all.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, for Billy Horschel, it's on site. I don't know why he's so mad about it. Maybe he didn't get an offer, but I really do. That's
be.
my only guess, but I really do think that all of that's probably just better for the game. We're
Yeah.
talking about it, so there's something to it.
Definitely. I love Billy Horschel too. And you see him
Scary.
atop the leaderboard there with Joseph Bramlett in the Honda Classic. So hopefully he can make a splash this weekend. And yeah, I love Billy Horschel so much because I share so many of his emotions. And I think he comes off as a hothead, and I think he is. I think he really just wants to let loose out there when he's pissed off. He probably wants to wrap a couple of clubs around a tree or a lamp post or whatever's nearest to him that's solidified itself into the ground. He wants to put a club into it.
We've
It's a
seen him
bad
let
shot.
off some steam out there.
Yeah, he does, and he's yelled at himself, and but he also has the ability to get to that point and then bring it back. He can bring it back and hone in, and next thing you know, he's playing well again, hitting every green, hitting fairways, and then he's sitting there, top 5, top 10 position. Definitely in position to win the tournament even most times. So a very interesting player to follow, Billy Horschel. So we'll look forward to it. We'll see what we see going forward as these majors approach us. And even the Ryder Cup, there's been some news related to the Ryder Cup and the eligibility for LIV Golf players, if they will be allowed to or not. From what I heard, they're not allowed to play in the Ryder Cup. So that could change. That is subject to change, but that's coming up as well. So I'm looking forward to all these events. I'm looking forward to everything happening with the LIV Golf Tour, PGA Tour. I'll be honest with you, I don't really watch LIV Golf that much. If it's on, it's not, because it's not. They don't have a TV deal. But I will go to their website and check it out sometimes. But it just doesn't have that same aura to it that the PGA Tour events have. I don't know what it is. I mean,
No,
do
the
you see that too?
broadcast is Pee Wee. Their biggest commentator is Faraday. He's never really done much for me. They've got a TV deal in the works right now. We'll see what that does for them. Last season, if you wanted to watch them, you had to go to YouTube or the livetour.com. So they do kick off the season tomorrow at Mayakorba. Or Mayakoba, I butchered that. But I'll be taking some peeks at that. I know how it's gonna go. I'm gonna get the PGA Tour on tomorrow, bright and early at 7. I'm gonna wake up early, probably at 6, get my coffee in me, so I'm ready to watch all the PGA Tour golf tomorrow morning. And then when LIV tees off, I'll open it up, I'll watch for a couple seconds, and I'll see their stupid mascots and their stupid team names, and I'll probably just turn it off.
Yeah, I think the team names and the mascots and everything like that kind of ruins it. I mean, that doesn't help it at all.
It's ridiculous, man. It's insane. I don't understand why, not only why that was the idea that was presented. I can't imagine being in the boardroom and being like, they're going to be pink. We're going to draw the team mascot. It's going to be a cartoon. My nephew drew it. He's 4. And we're going to let my niece, who's 6, name them. Like, I can't imagine being like, bingo. It just doesn't add up to me.
It's nuts, man.
Insanely weird. Could you imagine referring to Tiger Woods on Sunday as anything other than Tiger Woods? Can you imagine being like, Tiger Woods drops a birdie for the Bombers? Like, that'd be weird, man. I mean, it's so foreign to me.
I see what they're trying to do, but I don't think it's applicable in golf unless you got the Team USA against the international team going at it, or Europe versus
for like one tournament a year. Like, that's
Yeah,
a very
and I
special
like that, though,
thing.
'cause
That's
you
a
got
very
two
special
teams.
thing.
This
And
is
when
like
you
a
have
free for all. You're playing like search and destroy with like 10 different teams. I see what they're trying to do, but it just doesn't work. It's not good in execution.
When you talk about things like the Ryder Cup, or when you talk about Olympic golf, the whole LIV team format diminishes the value of those Ryder Cup events, because that's something you look forward to. It doesn't happen very often. It's something that has such high value because it's a rarity, right? So when you see this every week, or I mean, really on the LIV Tour, they're not golfing every week, but when you see it for a whole season, it's not the same. It's really not.
I agree 100%. All right, well, we'll leave it at that. We'll let off Live Golf for now, but until next week or next episode, we will definitely return to Live Golf because it'll be a very pertinent issue for months and even years to come, it looks like. So we'll see what happens with it. And going into the Players Week, we're going to have a special pod for that as well, talking and forecasting different players that have a potential to make a big splash going into the Week of the Players. So we're looking forward to all of it. For now, we'll end it, though. Sam, you got any final thoughts, final words for the people out there before we sign off?
I just say if you didn't get to watch any of the action today, tune in tomorrow. Very easy. ESPN Plus has a live feed of damn near every golfer in the field. It's been a very interesting tournament so far. I can only expect that it's going to get better. This is one of the tougher courses on the tour, so I think you're going to see a lot of change tomorrow. They call it Moving Day for a reason, and I expect it to be exciting.
Yes, sir. Looking forward to watching the rest of the Honda Classic going into the weekend. It's going to be a great tournament. Hopefully Billy Horschel can get himself a win or at least put himself in position going into Sunday with a good score. So looking for Billy Horschel to do well. And we just mentioned Billy Horschel. He's at the top of the leaderboard round one, but we're pulling for him. We like his mentality. He's a PGA Tour guy, and he's a man of the people. So a lot of good things to say. So good deal, good deal. All right. Well, make sure to check out our website for all updates, articles, IG posts, etc. at ginsportsnetwork.com. Make sure to check out our link tree. It has all of our socials on it. Both Sam and my socials will be on the bottom of the podcast. You can check those out. Feel free to get at me on Twitter. I'd love to get into a debate with you for the world to see. It's happened a couple times, and I welcome it every chance I get. So be sure to do that. And yeah, we'll see you guys here next time on the GSN Pod. We'll leave it at that for now. I'm John J. II here with Sam Vitale at the GSN Pod for the Gin Sports Network. Have a great night.